Okay, I'm Karen, and welcome to our agriculture think tank. Well, our community supported agriculture think tank. The Canadian Restoration Plan is what we focus on through Life First Canada, and we're just making sure that Canadians are growing their own food. And we're here to share ideas, support you in creating your agricultural projects that can benefit not only yourself, but everyone else, and really to stay focused and updated on food security and water security. I'm not too sure if anyone you saw the price of milk in Oahu in Hawaii. It's $8. It's like for the plastic jug of milk right now. So food security is making sure that we're stocking up as well, because prices of food are going to increase. We know the global elites are creating these high prices. As we know, they do not like us humans. So it's important for us to make sure that we have a priority in growing as much as we can in our own provinces, and then supporting each other through this time of transition. Next week, I'm excited to have Lizette presenting the Food Security Structures Canada. When she spoke last week and shared a little bit of what she's doing, I saw the website. Of course, I think many of you did, and I was so impressed with those greenhouses. So next Friday, she's going to be sharing. And on the 25th, we have Karen Hanna from Plant Council Manitoba that she's going to be sharing their community garden project. I think that's awesome. Today, we have Kimberly presenting. Last week, we had a lively conversation about microgreens, and there was some interest when Kimberly shared about winter sowing. So I thought that would be a great topic for today. And Kimberly is really going to be sharing what winter sowing is, when to sow, and the benefits, because I think more and more people now are going to start creating their own gardens. And I think this is going to be something important because of, the time of the year as well. So I think this is perfect. So Kimberly, the floor is all yours.
Okay, so winter sowing. It's a great technique that's been used by quite a few people for probably 10 or 15 years, and it's quite a simple process. So here's what it looks like. We're seeing what it's. Oh, sorry. Here, let me just remove something here from. So any kind of plastic jug, whether it's juice, whether it's vinegar containers, anything that, even pop containers, oil containers, anything that is plastic that has a food product in it can be used. And so basically, you're taking your container, as you can see here. You're going to put holes in it. So I put about 6 to 8 holes in the bottom and about 3 or 4 or 5 holes on the top of it. You take the cap off. You're going to slice it in half, and you're going to put your potting soil in the bottom, about 2, 3. I usually put a little bit more, about 4 inches worth of wet soil. Then I put my seeds on top, and I do take and put a slight little cover over top of it just to ensure that that they're set in the soil, and then you label it with a Sharpie. Some people actually use popsicle sticks inside. Some people will actually just put a number on it, because your Sharpie or your whatever you're using can, of course, wash off over time. And then you seal it with duct tape. And so this is like your little mini greenhouse. And you put them outside, and it is, some people actually bury them in the snow. If you don't have snow, that's okay. And basically what's happening here is you're allowing nature to take care of these seeds. And when nature says, okay, now's the time, spring's coming, your seeds will start to come to fruition in due order. The only thing that really you need to watch for is to ensure that your soil does not dry out. And so what I've done is, I'll take a 5-gallon pail with a little bit of water in it, and I'll dunk my containers, for a few moments, so that they get a little bit of bottom watering. So Otherwise, they will receive the snow coming through on the top of the lid. They will receive the rain. And you can start basically pretty much now, up until probably the end of March, even into April. So some of the other options people have used are these metal pans that you can get from the dollar store that have like they have a like a plastic covering. And so again, the same sort of thing applies, putting some holes for moisture to come in on the top and some to drain through. And then you need to trust in the process, which can be difficult because everybody wants to know that they're coming and so forth. I did it last year for the first time, and my success rate was about 90%. So any seeds that need stratification, so any seeds that they talk about that you need to put them in cold prior to actually planting, this is a perfect way for it. However, most seeds can be done in this process because the container is basically creating a little environment similar to what a greenhouse would. Then you need to ensure that you have it in a spot where the wind's not going to blow it over and so forth. And it's quite simple. I would start my tomatoes and my peppers and that a little bit later, like maybe in the closer to the end of March, just because they're a little bit more tender. But most of the other ones are good to go. Like I did Brussels sprouts early. People do some of the root vegetables. I didn't because they're pretty fast growing typically, and easy enough to plant right in the ground as we're starting to see our ground thaw. But this is just a great way to get a jump on your seeds, and especially if you don't have room in your house. So anybody have any questions?
So Tanis, go ahead.
Oh, that's so amazing. First of all, I'm thinking, okay, this is going to my house, but winter planting, no, that goes outside. That's amazing. Could I leave it? No, maybe not. I was going to say leave it in my greenhouse that I already have, but then it wouldn't get the natural water coming down like the snow and stuff. But I actually did this for the first time this fall, where I got some Russian red garlics. Okay. And I planted them in the fall. And then because garlic has a longer growing time, they said to plant it in the fall. And then by the time that harvest comes in, like August, September, then you actually have a full bulb of garlic. So I'll let you guys know how that turns out. But my actual question, Kimberly, is there any seed that you would not plant in there?
Like I said, some people believe that root vegetables can be a little bit more difficult because of the transplanting process. So carrots, beets, radishes, that sort of thing. But there is lots that still do it and, don't have to, don't fail in the process either. I wouldn't put all my seeds in this basket per se, but I would, I would do a portion of them for sure, because you can definitely stagger your growing season by having these ones be already advanced by the time you're ready to start transplanting them into soil. So probably very few, to be honest, Tanis. However, like I said, tomatoes and peppers, some of those that are a little bit more sensitive, I would definitely do it a little bit later. However, like last year I did some peppers and tomatoes. They're going to come up when it's their time. No matter what. It really is it's a really great exercise in trust.
Right. Well, that's what they said with the garlic too, is that it's supposed to go into dormancy over the winter.
Yeah. And so this is what happens with the seeds. I mean, anything that can fall on the ground and then grow when the sun starts to warm up the soil and so forth, this process works amazing. So it's a great way to get an advance on your garden. The only, like I said, the main key is to trust in it. Don't have it in a spot where it's windy and it's flopping all over the place. Some people take a broom or something to that effect and they put them through the handles if you're using something with a handle. And then, you know, check them periodically to make sure that they have enough moisture. And, you know, with us being in Chinook weather down here in Calgary, that's something, you know, I would check them every 9-10 days, and it's easy to check. You lift it up and you go, okay, that's really light. That could do with a little bit of moisture. And so, you know, I just dunk them for, you know, a minute or two or whatever to let them get a little moisture, and then, you know, put them back out. I did have to look into one of them. I believe got these I forget what they're called, these little mite things, and it was on my stalks. And so I ended up having to I sprayed a little bit of neem oil inside of it, and that took care of it right away.
I didn't know that neem oil was a like a mite killer or something.
Neem oil is a really fantastic natural pesticide. It will kill mites, it'll take care of cabbage worms, all kinds of different things.
Interesting. I actually bought some last year.
Is it maybe too strong for plants? I noticed I used it once and it was some damage in the leaves.
Well, you definitely have to dilute it. You have to have it in water, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you wouldn't put it straight on by any means, but you know, a few drops in some water, and then sprayed on, is good. You have to be careful with doing it, you know, on sunny days. You'd want to do it when the sun's down, or you know, in the evening where it has some time to be absorbed and not become a glaze that burns your leaves. Does that answer
Thank
your
you.
question? Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Tanis, are you good?
I am fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanis. Great questions. Karen.
Yes, I'm curious why this method versus, say, just you know, planting indoors and, you know, later on, and then transplanting.
Just because
to
you
the
know, this
garden.
is working more so with nature, and you know, it's a cheaper way of doing things when, one, you don't have the space, two, you don't have the lights. You know, so I mean, if of course this, like I do some in the house and I will do some outside. You know, this helps me have a balance because of course I can't have my space at home here at the moment. I just don't have the space to have a whole bunch of items all over the place growing, right? So this is just really helps for space purposes, and also these plants will not need to be hardened because they have been in the environment the entire time. So typically they're a lot stronger of plants than what you would have typically growing in your house, because they haven't had any weather exposure. They haven't had any natural forms of wind and so forth. So you will notice that difference with them being really, really strong plants.
Thank you. I have a second question. I have some tulip bulbs that I was going to put in some planters in the fall, and I didn't get them in. So would you say I could do that with the tulip bulbs as well?
I haven't tried tulip bulbs. I mean, tulip bulbs can be forced at any point in time. So as long as they look like they're still viable and they haven't completely dried out, you should be able to put them in the pots. But I would leave it until you're actually doing your plant pots, you know, to go outside. Then I'd put them in the pots. However, you know, if you're forcing them like that, you can't keep them in the pots because bulbs really need the earth energy. And so you can grow them in the pot for this year, and then, you know, when it comes fall, go put them back in the ground And if you want to use them again in a pot, you can dig them back out and put them back in a pot. But they really need the dormancy that's created by the earth.
Thank you. Yeah, I was gonna put them, they're actually in it's really big tubs that I was gonna put them in. They're not just little pots, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
good to know. The earth
Yeah,
energy. So thank you.
Yeah, with that, like, I mean, some people can be successful with it. It means that you really need to be watching them a lot closer, because the key is that those pots typically, with the wind and the weather exposure, they actually dry out. And so if you want, for me, oh, sorry, there was some, anyways, basically what happens is anything that's in a pot dries out because of weather, temperatures, and so forth. So you need to actually put, you need to ensure that they're in an ice block. So you wouldn't be able to do that right now, and it's something that you would have to baby a lot. So I'm not, I'm a bulb grower. I'm an oriental lily grower. And so I have, I don't know, probably 500 bulbs in my yard, but I just haven't had the desire to do it in big pots or anything that's not in the ground. So it's something to experiment. I mean, that's what gardening's about.
Thank you very much. That was helpful.
Great
With that, I
question.
yield.
Thank you, Kimberly. And just a reminder for everyone, Kimberly is our environment lead in our Plant Council Alberta. And yeah, she's very passionate about the environment. And as you can see, she's very educated. And I'm so glad you're here, Kimberly. Thank you. Dorothy.
Just wondering, do the containers have to be clear, translucent? I don't buy much milk in jugs. I have a few vinegar containers. Kefir containers are mostly what I get dairy in, and they tend to be white. Would that reflect too much light? They wouldn't get enough warmth?
So last year I did it in clear pop bottles and even in green bottles, juice containers that, were not really, with like the same sort of aspect of the milk jug, right? Where they've got a little bit of a film on them, and they were fine.
Okay.
So the key is that it needs to be a food grade product, that something's coming out of plastic wise, right?
Okay. Thank you.
This, in regards to the copyright, this is a group that I belong to that posts this. So it's not something too concerned, because they do share it quite a bit amongst the community. So I'm hopeful that there won't be a copyright issue.
Oh, no, that'd be good. Awesome. And that was a great question, Dorothy, because I don't drink milk at all. And so I would never be buying these bottles, but that was a great question. Thank you, Kimberly, for answering that.
Yes, distilled bottles work, like oil bottles. I mean, pop, soda, juice. I've seen some people have actually used Ziploc bags, which means that they need to then, create a form to hold them, obviously from the top, which to me just seems really difficult, especially when there's so many different plastic containers that we can repurpose. And I mean, the sky is the limit, really. I mean, there's lots of products that are coming in plastic that are from food grade aspects.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned food grade plastic. Tanis, do you have another question?
Do I still have my hand up? I can't see because I don't see anybody right now. Like, you know what I mean? So I'll lower my hand. But I was just gonna say, actually, while I'm off mute, I was just gonna type in the chat, but What about mushroom, like the plastic things like that you get from mushrooms or cherry tomatoes? Because you know how it's all in the plastic trays. Like they're not very deep though. Like maybe the mushroom's a little deeper, but how much? You said 3 to 4 inches.
Yeah, I usually put 3 to 4 inches, because they need enough space to create those roots, and they need, that's their home, and that home needs to be adequate for them, possibly for 2 months of growth. When they start to really grow, you'll start to see that they start to come all the way up. Like it says, open the jug in the spring. So you'll look in there and you'll see little sprouts and so on and so forth coming. When they start to get too tall, you may need to open them up and let the air and the wind and everything, you know, give them the space that they need, right? But then, in the spring, sometimes we have these temperatures that drop at night. You can easily just put the lid back down, and whether you want to put a little tape piece on it or not. Mine last year, I didn't have too many that were falling out of the jug, so I didn't have to worry about it too much. But yeah, it was really refreshing to not have to purchase a bunch of plants. I mean, I really love my flowers as much as anything, and so last year the purchasing of even bedding plants was minimal because of it.
Thank you, Tanis. Kimberly, how many jugs do you normally have?
Last year I think I had 50. But you see, because I had a whole front yard that was re-landscaped, and so I was, and anything that's biannual, so a plant that blooms every 2 years, you can start it in this container. You'll get the green growth of it. You may not get the flowering this year, but you'll definitely get it the next year. And like I said, fantastic as far as strong plants. Like I've grown cosmos for many, many years, but I have never grown cosmos like I did last year. Yeah. Like literally they were probably 4.5 feet long, and the stalks were like way bigger than 2 knees. So, and my Brussels sprouts were amazing. What was it? Amaranth grew amazingly in there. I grew goji berries in there to start them off. And so, yeah, it was just really nice to have a head start on items.
Your garden is so beautiful. I'm a witness. Karen, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question about the soil. Were you using commercial potting soil or topsoil? Does that work just as good, or what were you using?
No, it's better to use a potting mix of some form. I mean, you could use topsoil, but then you need to add Pedialyte or something, because these seedlings need space, right? They need to have growth space, and sometimes our topsoils are quite heavy. And so, I mean, you could certainly do a mixture, with coconut coir. Some people use coconut coir with a little bit of, say, worm castings, and then, adding some Pedialyte and topsoil. I mean, you certainly could mix a bunch, but you need to be aware that they need that space that comes with potting soil or a medium like potting soil.
Thank you. And do you know where the potting soil comes from? Like, are we likely to see any shortages on that this year, or?
I have a
I'm not
feeling.
around. Sure.
I have a feeling we're going to see shortages for sure. Like I myself have been a seed fanatic. I've been buying, and even last spring, by the time like April came, there were issues with people buying seed, and so I wouldn't be leaving that. And if I were most people, I would be telling you to buy a bunch of seeds. I mean, of course, what's going to happen in this world, in my opinion, is while we go through this transition, we're going to need to barter and trade. However, it doesn't hurt for anybody to have a little bit of extra of different seeds, because even now, like I have already seen some people say, well, I can't get this, I can't get that. And so it could become more so. I think it's good to have some potting soil on hand. I think it's good to have some coconut coir on hand. It just really depends on where your finances are, but having a little bit will not hurt.
Thank you.
Hey, Karen. Claudette.
Hello. Hi, Kimberly. Thanks for this
Hello.
presentation. This is really interesting. I read a little bit up on this. I think there was some kind of video online, but I came on a little late, so I'm not sure if I missed this, but I'm just wondering, I'm here in Saskatchewan, and the picture there, it indicates, optimal time is between February and April. And like today we're minus 19. So what would you like when you put these outside and you're getting them hardy for getting them acclimatized and so forth, and to prevent having to take them in and out of your household, what would be the maximum, like, below temperatures that you could start these in? I just don't want to be sowing seeds and then they get ruined, they get too cold or that kind of thing.
So here's the beauty of it all.
Okay.
It doesn't matter what the temperature is outside,
Oh.
because how we need to understand this is not that I want to promote poverty, but this is a poor man's greenhouse. So what you do is you essentially are putting seeds in your little greenhouse, and you don't have to worry about them. The biggest thing you need to be concerned with is that they have enough moisture. So periodically you may need to take your little 5-gallon pail with some water in it and give them a little bottom soak. And so what happens is, the moment that you take them outside, like the moment you're preparing this, they're going to have water, and your seeds are going to be in there, and of course they're going to freeze, but they're going to go through this phase with the earth energy, basically, and the environment. And what happens is, with that, Mother Nature knows more than you and I when our frost is going to being alleviated, when the soil's coming. I mean, this is one of the signs that we all love, or some of us will love, is when we see the crocuses are coming and so forth. The other day, I couldn't believe it, actually. Our house finches are back here in Calgary, which is a sign to me that we are probably going to have an earlier spring. And maybe that's just me being optimistic, but I'm hopeful. Anyway, so no, you do not move them in and outside. You put them outside, and if you have snow, you can bury them in the snow. The snow becomes the insulator for your little greenhouses. So if you don't have snow, it doesn't matter. Nature knows best. I have them on cement, and so what I've noticed is I'll put them on cement because I don't have a lot of snow, and especially right now we don't have a lot, and that's fine. I'll put them on the cement. We'll get a snowfall, and I'll just make sure I dump all the snow on top of my jugs, and then as it alleviates. Now you do need to make sure that your jugs are not sitting in tons of water for weeks on end either, right? You don't want them to be drowning per se, but yeah, you don't take them in and out. You leave them outside and allow nature to tell your seeds when it's time to grow. And that's why it is a really beautiful process. And like I said, a great exercise in trust.
Yeah, wow, that's exciting. And so you're mentioning, because we have still about 2 feet of snow, maybe even a little bit more. So you're mentioning that we can even put it right into the snow, and we would cover the top, or do we leave the top kind of open?
So you want to make sure that your little containers are that you have duct tape around them, right? So the only openings are the few little holes that you've placed on the top, and you always leave the lid off, okay, of your container. So that's, your opening for nature to naturally water it from above. But there is some great YouTube videos on winter sowing, and there's a wonderful lady actually in Saskatchewan who actually has some great videos on this. So you can basically dig out a layer, a platform for your containers to sit in, and then shovel the snow onto the edges, right? And then let it be. And make sure that you're, like I had mentioned before you had come on, you're going to have to make sure that the wind's not going to blow them over as well, right? So sometimes people will put a broom in the handles if you're using milk jugs. If you're not, you can put them in milk crates or something similar to that. So yeah, that's the most important thing, is one, they don't blow over too much. I mean, once they go out, they're gonna be a solid block of ice. And this is, what as gardeners we do typically stratification, right? So there's that aspect for the seeds. You're getting a head jump on this. Basically, you're letting nature stratify it, and so you're letting it go through the process of that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Claudette. Tennis, you are so funny. Free snow at Tennis's.
Oh goodness.
Dorothy, go ahead.
Just a further comment to Claudette's concern. I may have imagined it. I do that from time to time. I thought I remembered seeing something in one of those videos we watched last week to indicate if your seeds started to sprout and came above the ground, and then we were due for a cold snap, that we should at that point consider bringing them in. Did I imagine that? If you've got some growth above the ground, because
yes, you did.
did I imagine that?
Yeah, no, you did. Yeah, you have to trust the process that Mother Nature knows when and how it should work, because the strongest will survive, and those plants are the ones that really will bring you the best fruition. So, I mean, this is the key, is you don't want to put them in a spot that's too hot. That you don't want to maybe put them in a sense. Yeah, I know, right? Like, for example, you don't want to put them in the south of your property per se, but you might want to put them in the east, right? Where they're getting some sunshine, but they're not getting the maximum. But in my yard, I have them in a southeast exposure. I've had them on cement. When I see that they're getting too hot, or the temperatures down here are getting crazy, sometimes I'll move them into the shade for a little while and then put them back in my spot. But you do not want to ever bring them into the garage or the house, because you're infringing upon Mother Nature's natural timing. And
Okay.
so you don't want to do that. They'll come up, they'll know when the time is right. The plants know when the time is right. And it's just a really amazing process. Like I said, there's numerous videos on YouTube. There is some Zone 2 on there, so you all can have another look at that. There is somebody also here in Calgary who talks about it for the Chinooks. This lady will cover it up. She'll go and, she lives on an acreage, I believe, and she'll cover them up, dig a platform in the snow, put snow up to each and every side, even, cover them over with snow. And that's fine if you have it. I don't anymore, but doesn't mean that we won't still get more snow, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, so you don't want to baby them too much. The main thing is don't let them blow over in the wind too much, because of course if your soil has thawed out for that day, your seeds are going to, be all over the place. And within the jug, that is. And then also when they dry out, right? Of course they need moisture.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, I wouldn't put all my seeds into all my containers.
Oh,
If,
I'm not.
no, but it is, it's something, if you can do a few, it'll help you get a movement forward. Like, so I did some tomatoes, I did some cucumbers, I did some peppers. My peppers last year, I probably did them in the end of March. They were fantastic. My tomatoes, took a little bit longer, but they were really strong plants. The Amrath was really amazing. It grew really, really well. I think by the end of the season, they were probably about 3 feet tall. So, and my Brussels sprouts too, they really did well in the process. They were probably about, by the time I was taking them out of the containers to plant into the soil, they were probably already about 5 inches tall. So the nice thing about this is, like I said, if you don't have the space in the house and you don't have a whole bunch of lights, this is another option for you, right? To get a little bit more movement forward in your garden. So whether you decide, okay, I'm gonna try this with 30% of my seeds, or whatever percentage it is, it's a nice way to ensure that your garden's got a little bit of an advance. But with the tomatoes, the peppers, and cucumbers, some say not to do cucumbers. I did. I had lots of success with it. They're not going to grow really, really tall before it's time. Like, and some of my containers, I was looking in there, I was like, oh no, nothing's happening. And then all of a sudden you see these little sprouts and you go, okay, you know what, the time is right. Mother Nature says that we're the green light, and here they grow. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Amazing presentation. Thank you so much, Kimberly. And it's so perfect because we have such a short growing season here. And this is just a great jump start for everyone who's passionate about gardening. And you're right, Jeff. Kimberly's very passionate about gardening. I love it.
Yes, very.
Thank you for taking the time, Kimberly. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
And yeah, it's wonderful. And I just want to remind everyone that next week, I did mention this earlier, but there's a few people who came in later on. We have Lizette, who is going to be sharing our presentation on the food security structures. I just put the link of the website in the chat. Highly recommend you check it out if you haven't. The greenhouses are incredible. And so she's going to be sharing about that next week. And then we have Karen Hannah, who's going to be sharing about the community garden, and I'm really excited about that as well. Kimberly, go ahead.
Also wanted to mention, for those of you that are in environment, I have put together an environment group for going back and forth with each other. It's FLC Environment on Telegram. And so I'm hoping that this will be kind of our Canadian site so that we can share things back and forth, because as Dorothy and I are researching many different things, we're coming across things that could help some of the other provinces. There may be leads and other things there for you guys to look at. So please, look for it, or let me know if you're interested in being a part of it, and I can search you out. With that, I yield.
Thank you, Kimberly. And I just want to share with everyone that I've been speaking with Kelly in regards to the water order that Kimberly has put forth, and it's about monitoring our rivers here in Alberta. And the actual monitoring of rivers has been approved as an apple in the orchard. So I'm very, very excited about that. And so I just I'm submitting the order today to Kelly. Kimberly, after we're done here, if you and I can have a meeting before I submit it to him, that would be great. And so, for him to say approved in regards to monitoring of rivers is a big thumbs up, absolutely. And Steve is here, and he's involved in agriculture, and I'd love for everyone to meet Steve. And eventually I'd love to have you present in regards to what you're doing, Steve.
Sorry, yeah, absolutely. I was just finding the LFC telegram. That was why I had my hand up, but she clarified and now I found it.
Excellent.
So, yes. Yes, I'm working on several different fronts, and one's environment, one is vertical farming. So everything that I'm working on is on a fairly grand scale. And there's a lot of technologies out there that are pretty incredible for vertical farming and for the environmental cleanup. So everything I've got is green. So, yeah.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, we have presenters on here that are from the individual perspective to commercial. And so it's really important for everyone here to learn and to grow together. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, everyone, for doing everything you're doing, standing for freedom. We so appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing you on the national call on Monday evening. We're going to be going down a few rabbit holes. Very exciting. And have an awesome weekend. Relax. Take time for yourself. Thank you for being here. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. And have a great weekend,
Thank you.
guys. Bye.
Thank you,
Have a
Karen.
good day,
Have a
everybody.
great weekend,
Weekend,
everyone.
bye.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you, Linda.